My next patron question is from Benjamin, who wants to know whether a famous literary character will be receiving a new take in the future. Do you think we'll get a new Pippi Longstocking adaptation anytime soon? Despite the enduring legacy of Swedish author Astrid Lindgren's famous Redhead, you think we will be getting frequent adaptations. And yet, surprisingly, the last screen version of the character was the Nelvana animated series from the late 90s. Lindgren was quite protective of her most famous creation, but with Pippi being a cultural icon in Sweden, you might expect more filmmakers or television creators to adapt those books. However, doing some further research on the subject, I found out why this is not the case. Part of Lindgren's protectiveness originated from her dissatisfaction with a film adaptation in 1949, although she did allow an episode of Shirley Temple's fantasy anthology show to adapt it some years later. She was a lot more heavily involved in a Swedish television series that aired in 1969. This was a huge hit there and even spawned a film franchise. It was actually shortly after this that Hayao Miyazaki and Isao Takahata became interested in directing an animated adaptation, and Miyazaki even went so far as to draw a bunch of concept art. They flew to Sweden to try and persuade Lindgren to sell them the animation rights, but she turned them down. Miyazaki did not even get the opportunity to meet her personally. She was that opposed to an animated version being made. In the 80s, she allowed an American film adaptation to be produced, although it took a bit of persuasion to get her to agree to it. When she saw the finished film, titled The New Adventures of Pippi Longstocking and directed by Ken Anakin, she hated it. ABC also produced a two-part Pippi Longstocking television special for their Saturday morning block in 1985, but I cannot find out what she thought of that one. I don't know what led her to allow Nelvana to make an animated adaptation, but she did, and that resulted in a movie and then a television series with Pippi's voice being provided by Melissa Outro, who most will recognize as the voice of Muffy on Arthur. This one also did not meet Lindgren's high standards, and like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, there have been no new film or television adaptations since. Astrid Lindgren died in 2002, with her leaving the Pippi Longstocking rights in the hands of her self-named company, currently run by her family, and they've been just as protective as she was. Going on their official website, you can see how fiercely they've stuck to keeping her ideals intact and respecting her wishes about what Pippi and her other characters will be allowed to do. And that's honestly quite admirable. I'm sure they've gotten countless offers from producers to make a new Pippi Longstocking movie and television series and have turned them down, despite the potential financial rewards. In 2011, the Los Angeles Times was interviewing Deborah Granick, the director of Winter's Bone, for a story, and said she was working on an adaptation of Pippi Longstocking. I remember getting excited about that, but then Granick revealed not long afterwards that her comments were taken out of context, and the article writer just assumed her enthusiasm for the character meant she was working on a movie about her. Nonetheless, I think she would be a good fit for it, based on how she portrayed her young, smart female leads in Winter's Bone and Leave No Trace. Finally, it was announced in 2019 that the Astrid Lindgren Company had agreed to partner with Studio Canal and producer David Heyman on a new film adaptation. Heyman produced the Harry Potter and Paddington movies, which was the main reason they agreed to let him handle new adaptation, as they were impressed with his ability at bringing those beloved characters to the screen and finding the right filmmakers who respected the original source material. No details were revealed beyond that, though, including who would direct or write the movie. And as I'm recording this, there have been no updates since then, so I don't know if the project is in development hell, or whatever script was written or director was hired just did not reach the satisfaction of her family. This can often stall a film adaptation, and one can understand the author's family wanting to make sure the material is not handed off to just anyone. Roald Dahl's family is very similar. They have a lot of control over who gets to adapt his work, even turning down a suggestion by Warner Brothers to have Tom Shadyac direct the film adaptation of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory with Jim Carrey starring as Willy Wonka, despite both having an incredible box office track record at the time. Of course, you also have estates that are happy to let anyone who waves a check at them have the film or television rights, but that obviously is not the case with Pippi Longstocking's rights holders, and that's great. If it takes a long time before we see Pippi on screen again, at least we know why. Thank you for your question, Benjamin.